So in this next James Bond movie, which is Her Majesty's Secret Service, is a sequel to You Only Live Twice, but without Sean Connery, because Sean Connery was out and didn't want to do it anymore. So they brought in George Daly, who was not an actor. He had never performed in a movie before. This was his last performance, I believe, in any movie, and this was his last performance as the character of James Bond. And his name was Lord George Daly. Excuse me if I'm pronouncing that name wrong, but yeah, it's a this is another black sheep within the Bond series because of that reason. It is the only Bond who has only been Bond once, and he's played by an Australian actor, or not actor, model. He was a model, not an actor, and I don't think it hurt this movie. I think it's a pretty good movie still. I think it has a little bit of a problem that the last movie did, which is exposition nonstop in this movie. And a lot of that has to do to it takes the book and follows it way too closely, in the sense that it doesn't distinguish adapting a film from a book and it being a film, not a book. You know, in a book, you can explain a lot of exposition, and that's okay. But in a movie, you have to explain it better and do it better than you would in a book. Because in a book, you have more time. Books can last as long as the writer wants. You know what I mean? Movie can't. It has to be a certain length. And so this movie's hurt by that a lot. And I also think that, it acting as a sequel is fine. What I do really like about this movie is the last few Bond movies have relied on gadgets. It's a cool thing. You know, it was introduced in one of Sean Connery's first movies, which was Goldfinger, which was fine. It worked in those movies, especially Goldfinger. It was great in that movie. But it was like, Bond is more than that. You know, this movie shows his wits a lot more and his cleverness, and he's in disguise in this movie, and he has to escape via unconventional means. And in this movie, he's trying to track down Blowhold. Excuse me, I'm forgetting how to pronounce his name, but the villain from the last movie, and he's going undercover, and that's really cool. But a lot of this movie is not as good as the other movies before this. I think this one is just hurt by this actor not being very experienced. I mean, he's okay in the movie, he's not bad, but he's just not very experienced, and he's not as nearly as good as Sean Connery, and never was going to be. And this movie's fine for what it is, but it's not one of the better Bond entries, and it's more of a forgettable one to most people, and I feel the same way. I think it's not a terrible movie. I think it has some good things going for it, but I think that this movie is still hurt a little bit from it not being as neatly paced as the other Bond movies before this. Even the last one, which I complained about the pacing in that one, is still better than this movie in terms of pacing. Not a terrible movie, works for what they're going for, but a lot of it is still could have been a bit better. Now we are moving on to the next Sean Connery film in the next Bond review.